Thank you very much. Earlier in the last hour, we were looking at the pre-nomination exercise presided over by returning officers across the country. This is part of IEBC's election preparedness ahead of the August polls. Our guests in studio were looking into factors that will be considered ahead of this. And as we proceed with Citizen Extra, we're shifting gears now, and we'll be talking about, we'll be crossing over to Eldoret very shortly as we look at how the pre-nomination exercise is being carried out there. But before that, we want to look at the six-piece voting system, after which we'll be talking about the running mate factor. And though the Kenyan presidential race is getting most attention, as voters go to the polls, they'll be choosing more than an executive. They are also being asked to decide 5 additional races. There's the race for Member of Parliament, Senator, Women's Representative, County Governor, and County Assembly Representative. So when we talk about the six-piece suit, this is the term that has been adopted to describe voting for the same coalition on all 6 ballots. Our guests in studio this morning, Boniface Mwangi, Ukweli Party aspirant Starehe constituency, and also with us is Ray Ochieng, who is a governance analyst, and Stephen Mogaka, aspirant West Mugirango, constitutional lawyer and political analyst. I want to start with you, Ray. This strategy essentially means that more coalition members will be in power, and therefore for them it will be easier governing. For the winners of this six-piece voting system, what, in your opinion, are the pros and the cons of this?
Lillian, the pros, they are looking at the numbers, and you've had even the president during the corruption forum at State House. He said that his hands are tied, even in terms of the people that are being elected to the House are the same people that he has to work with. So what are we saying in terms of, if we want clean water, then the pipes have to be clean? So in terms of what the parties are looking at, how do we get the numbers? Some of the governors have not performed simply because MCAs have hijacked and held them ransom for almost 2 years without passing the budget. So the parties are saying that both at the county assemblies and at the national parliament, they would want to make sure that they have the numbers so that they can easily pass whatever they want to pass. But there are demerits. In terms of what I think NASA has really come out clearly and has said that independent candidates, you are either with them or against them. One thing that I've said before, Lillian, it's not going to work in their favor. I know some people have argued in terms of this does not affect NASA so much, because when the IEBC released where independent candidates are located, they are mostly more on Jubilee camps. Remember, NASA is talking about 10 million strong. 10 million strong means every vote is going to be counting. So you are telling independent candidates, Lillian, who some of them have even over 50,000 voters who are supporting them. So you tell such a person that they are not part of the whole party process, then there is going to be voter apathy, because I'll be saying, if my candidate whom I really voted, unless they are standing from a standpoint of saying that the primaries were unadulterated, the primaries were clear, because we know the value chain of the primaries definitely brought a majority of candidates that were not were not the candidates that the electorate wanted. So, Lillian, that's where there is a problem. And I'm telling you that the voter apathy that is going to be happening is going to affect these parties. And NASA needs over 90% voter turnout. This affects that 90%.
Talking about NASA and their flag bearer, Raila Odinga Boniface, who is pro the six-piece voting system, immediately NASA became a reality. The traditional concept of six-piece voting in ODM technically became a nullity, because you have a Pentagon that has representatives. They all represent different parties. So how then does this work?
I think Raila Odinga is going an own goal by going against the people who support him. If you go to Kisumu or you go to Western, you find there's a lot of independent candidates who support NASA, but they're running on their own because either they were rigged out, there was ballot stuffing, or they feel like they're shafted by the party. They still support NASA ideologically, but they don't actually agree with the party choice. And I think to avoid voter apathy, Raila Odinga should be supporting them. Uhuru Kenyatta is on record saying, actually, vote for whoever you want for whatever position, but give me the presidency. And the point is, if you go for a wedding and there's chapati, maharagwe, mahindi, dengu, you choose what you want. And the voters should understand, when you're voting, look for who represents your best interest. It's not the party. Jubilee had tyranny of numbers in the last parliament. Actually, in the current parliament, they had tyranny of numbers. That did not mean that they're actually pushing people's agenda all the time. They never agreed on everything. By saying that they need numbers in parliament, they don't need them to be from their party. If whatever you're pushing is progressive for the entire country, people will agree. We know very well when they were trying to push salaries, both CORD members of parliament and Jubilee agreed. When their interests converge, they all agree on issues. My point is, voting 6 piece is foolishness, because you're going to vote for a thief, you're going to vote for a murderer, you're going to vote for a rapist, while you're thinking you're trying to protect the party. Do not vote 6 piece. You're Ujinga. Vote for who represents your best interest. And you may want whoever you want to become president, whether it's Raila Odinga or Uhuru Kenyatta, that's fine. But below those two people, there are people who represent your interest as a resident of an area or a member of the party. Choose who you want. Raila Odinga wants to become president. Let him campaign for his presidency. Uhuru wants to become president. Let them campaign for their presidential votes. Let the people decide who they want, because you're not our mother or father to tell us who to vote for. I think it's actually very rude and disrespect, because Raila Odinga has people in Central Province to support him, and they don't have someone running on CORD. So what are you telling them?
Stephen, Boniface is saying you're not our mother or father.
Yes, you can't tell. You see, because you're disrespecting the voter's choice. You're telling me, listen, I may love someone as a presidential candidate, whoever it is. Why are you telling me who to vote for to be my MCA and you don't live in my village?
But
you don't know what my problems are.
Does this 6-piece system make sense in the current dynamics when you look at NASA? And indeed, Boniface there is saying that this is likely to dupe the electorate into voting, or rather into electing leaders who do not serve their vision. And okay, before we look at the independent candidates factor and the fact that the NASA flag bearer is totally against them, let's talk about the 6-piece voting, how palatable it is, or if you are for it, why?
I think the reality in politics is that any person who is vying for a national position like President Raila to be and President Uhuru Kenyatta, they each have their strongholds, and for the NASA coalition partners, each of them have their strongholds, and they cannot be having strongholds unless they have numbers in the various elective positions. So I'm sure that if you are talking of Central Kenya, President Uhuru Kenyatta will go for no less than 6-piece, because why, as you will tell the voters, why give me the presidency and not give me the soldiers to do what it takes? That is the same thing I believe Raila would be saying in Luo Nyanza, where it is his stronghold, same as Weta and the Wiper region. Because without that, then these coalition partners will not be having anything to bring to the table when it comes to making national decisions. But when it comes to outside their strongholds, because I know that in Gusii, the NASA coalition partners and even Jubilee, each of them have their own candidates. And for those regions, and I know Starehe is cosmopolitan, for such regions, then you really must give way for the people's will to be upheld. Because if you decontextualize that campaign and you try to tell, Jubilee tries to tell people in Gusii region, for instance, to vote 6-piece, they will be dismissed. Just like if Wetangula comes to Luo Nyanza and starts saying, give me Fort Kenya 6-piece, it will not work. But the reality is that for each of these influential characters in the national politics, for them to get relevant, they must come with some minimum threshold of elected members, and for that reason they will go praying that the electorate gives them their 6%. So looked at globally and nationally, it is suicidal, and I can't agree more with my co-conversants that you cannot go and say this should apply globally. It cannot.
When it comes to the presidential vote, Ray, the current dynamics, looking at both Jubilee and indeed NASA, what scenario are we likely to see?
Come up again, Lily.
The presidential vote.
Yes.
Looking at the six-piece voting system and how this is likely to affect the presidential vote for both candidates, talking about Raila Odinga and indeed Uhuru Kenyatta. NASA, mixed reactions there among NASA affiliate parties as regards the six-piece voting system. There are those who are not in agreement with ODM party leader that this is the way to go. And looking at Jubilee, you know, Mama's indicating that they may be in support of independent candidates rallying behind them, but not quite clear about what direction to go as regards the six-piece voting system. Talking about the presidential vote, how is this likely to play out for both candidates?
Thank you, Lily. I think Wakili Mogaka has navigated finally to the truth, and I think he's also rightly put it, Lillian, that that should not be a national message. That should be something that they really address within their backyard. And there is even that thought in terms of how this affects the presidential tallying and votes, because look at even what happens in Jubilee. As much as the president has said, I'm going to support the independent candidates, internally there is still a lot of problems. And how this should have been handled, these are seasoned politicians, and I believe handling the independent candidates should have also been more of a boardroom and kind of a strategy that they have off cameras, and making sure that these people are on the ground, because they must be assured that the mainstream candidates are the ones that the party leaders are going to campaign for. Let me give an example. We have Kiambu County. We have Waititu, who is the mainstream aspirant for Jubilee, and who is almost now the new governor of Kiambu, if everything is to go by. Then we have Kavogo, who has also really now come and is even the chair of the Alliance of Independent Candidates. The fact is, Uhuru Kenyatta cannot, as the president, cannot go to Kiambu County and lift the two hands of these people and tell Kiambu people that, you know what, you can support anybody and give me the presidency. He's going to be very clear. He's not going to vote, he's not going to campaign for Kabogo, period. But the fact is, this thing needs a tactful and a strategic way of handling them. I think it's a greater risk than going openly in the media and telling these independent candidates that you're not for me. And Lillian, remember the independent candidates, some of them have got the infrastructure. Some of them lost by even around 10,000 votes. They have all the infrastructure to run a campaign. So the moment you tell them to fold all that infrastructure, then it works against you.
Right, and you know, Ray, very rightly putting it there, that it may not be in anybody's best interest to openly say that they're not in support of independent candidates. And the opposition, NASA Coalition's presidential candidate Raila Odinga, hit out at independent candidates in his Nyanza backyard, dismissing claims that he would back their candidature in the August polls. He's now calling on voters to reject independence. Independent candidates, on the other hand, have accused NASA presidential candidate of stifling democracy. Boniface, what's your stand on this?
I agree with Nyanza voters. I think it's dictatorial for you to disown your own people. When someone says that I'm supporting you as president, but I have a right to vie as an independent, do not muzzle them. Don't take us back to the Kano days. Every single person has a right to vie. And what Raila is doing indirectly is actually encouraging voter apathy. People will say, why should I go and vote for if my candidate is on the ballot? When you have many candidates on the ballot, that encourages voter turnout, because every single person has a reason to go to the ballot, to the polling station. So Raila Odinga should actually stay off independent politics, just the same way Uhuru Kenyatta should do, and focus on presidential, because he needs every single vote. And if that vote comes for the independents or his party candidates, let it be so. Remember, NASA is a coalition of other smaller parties. So he's actually saying it's either my way or the highway, and it's very dangerous for him. I think he should actually call a press conference or do another rally and say, I actually misspoke, I apologize, I respect voters' choice, because there are people who are going to be elected in this coming election who are independents, and that is a fact, and he must live with that fact. And he should be the one actually supporting them and says, everyone has a right to vie, vote for me for president, it's your choice. Remember, tyranny of numbers did not make any better in the last 5 years. Jubilee had tyranny of numbers. They had more MPs in parliament, and they did not push the agenda that we really wanted. So that doesn't mean that if you get the numbers that he wants, he's going to push his agenda. What did Court do with the 100+ MPs? Nothing. So don't tell us that when you have more numbers, you're going to do much more. You had 100 people could actually push a motion in parliament. They never did. They went to political rallies.
And Lillian, that then calls for Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta to be a little bit more presidential. And I think at this point, even their campaign team should be giving them a script so that you don't, because there are some words that they may be saying in funerals, and some small meetings that can end up even costing them, and because of their big egos, they may not actually, they don't want to redress that and come back to the media and say, yes, I was wrong. So they need to be given a script, and they must begin to look presidential.
and you know, Stephen, you know, Jubilee, let's talk about Jubilee. Jubilee is covertly or openly supporting its own Jubilee candidates, not independents, but has welcomed the support of the independents for its presidential candidate. We do know that the president and his deputy met William Kabogo yesterday. When you talk about you know, Jubilee supporting its own Jubilee candidates but welcoming the support of the independents for its presidential candidate, demystify that for us and what essentially Jubilee is trying to communicate to the electorate.
I think, Lillian, that is a short-term reaction by Jubilee to try and contain a perceived or a feared fallout from the independents. But far from what my colleagues are saying, I think Raila Odinga is spot on when he's saying that independents should remain independent. You know, the independent candidates, and I think with tremendous respect to them, are being pretentious, because the moment you espouse independence and you say you are running as an independent candidate, that means in law and fact that you do not have a presidential candidate. You are just running on your own. You cannot pretend that you are an independent candidate and then say, I am supporting Jubilee, I am supporting NASA. That is where we have a problem. And indeed, the law is very clear that you will either be a nominee of a political party or an independent candidate. The independent candidates have no business trying to pretend to support a political party. And that is really what the Right Honorable Raila Odinga is telling his people, that the law does not allow independent candidates to pretend.
But Mogaka, which law? We know very well. No. Elections are not won by law and paper. Political strategies. No. And Mogaka, you are a politician.
Yes,
and you know what how political dynamics are.
Yes.
You know that this election, it has been a game plan of numbers. That's why you get 10 million, 70 plus 1. These are cracking the numbers. So you cannot make a paper decision or a policy decision and say that is going to be applying on the ground. And I think I would want to hear from you. Are you not saying that we are having quite clearly influential independent candidates? What followers? Yeah, and what should these parties do? These parties must actually, as a matter of political strategy, you may not be right on that.
I may not be right, but I'm being practical, because between the independent candidates and the presidential candidates, who needs who? The reality is, it is the independent candidates who need the presidential candidates and not the other way around.
Let's hear Bonnie's thoughts on the thing.
Sometimes politicians overrate themselves by peddling fake influence. The people of Starehe know who they want to be the next member of parliament.
Exactly.
And they know who they want to become their president.
Sure.
And they won't mix the two of them. So the whole idea of that, because you are the party leader, you think that you can force your way towards your candidates. Because the other thing we need to understand here, all party nominations had anomalies. There was bribery involved, there was ballot stuffing, and people who are legitimately won were kicked out. And they actually have a reason to vie. Maybe Mr. Mogaka, you're facing an independent in your backyard. So you're actually inclined towards agreeing with Raila Odinga. But remember this, the independents have a right to support whoever they want to become president. But they also have a democratic right to run as an independent. So why are we trying to pull them down and say no, they shouldn't vie? Because that's not democracy. I think we respect the independent saying, actually, you're independent, vie, and campaign for us. And the more numbers who are campaigning for Raila Odinga, the better.
Mogaka is not, Article 85 is very clear in terms of the rights of an independent candidate. And Mogaka, what we are highlighting and what we are agreeing with Boniface is, then you must know that as a politician and the nature of politician you are, I believe you really know how numbers count on the ground. So you said that you may not be practically correct. So do you want to be practically correct and lose the elections?
No, there is no election to be lost.
Corrected, we're closing now.
There is no election to be lost here, and the point is, and I do caution independent candidates to remember that political parties have candidates running in those positions. And if they think by, threatening that if presidential candidates don't support them, they are going to divert their support, I think that is foolhardy. The point is, let independent candidates seek their positions, let political parties seeking presidential positions seek their presidential positions, and let those parties support their own candidates in various positions.
And then let
independents remain independent.
And it's important that the presidential candidates stay off local level politics.
They have to support their candidates.
We must understand one thing. Unless we are talking about, we want to take a Puritan approach, that the primaries were spot on, 100% fair. We know the primaries were shambolic.
But
so in terms of Lydia,
a one-liner from all of you. Should you be in support of the independents like Boniface and Ray are there, then how do the bigger parties get the much-needed numerical strength?
And Lillian, there is a foundation that we must admit. The party primaries were shambolic. So what happens?
That is
Mogaka, hold your horse. So it means there are people, there are candidates that right now are having the certificates who are not popular on the ground. So the thing is, for the parties also not to shame themselves, because if also they want the numbers, what we are just saying, they need to strategize and know how to harness. And also of the fact that the party leaders will not go and lift the two hands. That's also not practical politically. But they must devise a strategy, Lillian, of making sure that the few thousands that some of these independent candidates may have, they also make sure they put them in the bag. And then after elections, it will be automatically, the winners will align politically the people they feel like they support. And if the interests of Starehe are aligned on one side, I'm going to go to one side. So let's not say that after election there will be a crisis. There will be no crisis. There's not been a crisis in this country because of members of parliament not supporting who so and so. So let's not become pedestrian in our argument saying that because you're independent you don't support X. Because you're independent support X, but you have a right to Y. Let's respect that.
And finally,
my final goal on this is that yes, there may have been problems in the primaries, but this should not be baggage to be brought to the final election. My advice to independent candidates is to vie for their positions and leave the electorate to make their independent choices on what presidential candidate they are going to support. To imagine that they are going to hold presidential nominees to ransom and demand that they support independence, I think that is a pipe dream which they should discard and concentrate on seeking their positions independently and disabuse themselves of any political alignments if they want to remain true to the independence that they are seeking to run on.
And we've been talking about the 6-piece voting system with my guests in studio, Stephen Mogaka, who is an aspirant in West Mogirango. We've also been joined by Boniface Mwangi, aspirant Starehe constituency with the Ukweli Party, and Ray Ocheng, who is a governance analyst. In the next news hour, rather in this news hour, we'll be talking about the running mate factor, the naming of running mates in recent weeks, and indeed the rush to beat the deadline as more candidates name their running mates. We're back to that conversation. But before that, let's cross over to Lillian Towers, I believe, here in Nairobi County, as the IEBC continues with its brief on the pre-nomination exercise, which will be presided over by returning officers across the country.
A number of other people submitting those signatures as well, but in different formats. There is the regular booklet for submitting the signatures, and others are submitting with the Excel spreadsheet. And I wondered what I should be doing. I don't have a problem trying to submit mine if everything else is accepted, but I would like to make sure that the format and the consistency is taken care of, and we are told what we should be, and we shouldn't be disqualified whether it is either in the booklet form or it should be in an Excel format. Or they can be mixed. We just want to be very clear on that. And also, I was being asked to put it in a USB format. So I want to make sure that either CD or USB format are acceptable, and we can go forward with that. So that's all I have, and I just want to make sure the consistency and everything else that's supposed to be taking place has the same, ongoing consistency and format, and everybody is happy. That's what I have.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mheshimiwa Nyaga.
Thank you, Chair. I too wish to thank your institution for the job they are doing. And if you take into account those little things that have been raised, those little things that independents have raised, those court things that waste time, if you can sit down, resolve them, even without going to court, it will be a very good election, and history will judge you very fairly. So, if I were in your shoes, I would actually sort out these things out of court. These are the things, because I'm told there are some things that are administrative, and you know them, and you know I know them, and there are things that are legal. So, because we want a very good election, very quickly, why don't you just sit with these difficult people, who are not very difficult people, resolve them, then we can move, Mr. Chairman. That's what I'll suggest. On the voters list, I think issues have been raised about even the deadlines and so on. I think these are things, again, we don't have to go to court because of the changes that kept taking place. I registered mine a long time ago using a Joe Nyaga format. Then I was told it was wrong. Then they did another one. And I'm now being told there's something else. I think we can simplify these things. If you tell us what your intentions are, then we can help you resolve some of those issues. But I have over 60,000 in my particular case. But I just want to be sure that I'm not going to be taken round, and I know you don't intend to do that. You intend to do a very good job, and we'll help you do it. Finally, Mr. Chairman, you've heard about the issues. Supposing you give me 4 o'clock Monday as the time to do my registration, and the deadline we've been told is 4 o'clock. Do I have time to go and make those corrections and come back to you? These two things, but because I was in an old government where we played those of tricks, I'm very careful to be sure that those tricks don't happen to me. Because at 4 o'clock, I can be told the deadline is now. But if the deadline is now, what do I do, Chris? I have a problem if the deadline is now. That's what I'm asking. Little things that will make it very easy for us to be able to cooperate. And may the best person win. And I know the best person is myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mheshimiwa Nyaga. I think we have one more question, and then we'll have the chairman and others take the floor.
Habari zenu. I'm one of the sincere teachers who want to teach you, but many Kenyans are not good students. This time I pray they will be. Now, there are many aspirants. My brother mentioned, I don't know whether it was a mistake, 4,000 independent candidates. Maybe if they are not 4,000 now, they can be more. And that is a good indication that we are not happy with the leadership. It's a good indication. We are not happy. Nobody is happy. And number 2, there are wrong ideologies in the world today. There are very wrong ideologies in the world today, that change may come through a person with a lot of money. Change may come through a community that is large. Change may come through a person. There is ideology. And it is very unfortunate because it is affecting institutions. Somebody is already talking of it is a 2-horse race. An institution, you should not decide. Now, as much as we desire the change we want for our children, for our country, it is actually divine. Change comes from God. And leaders are chosen for 2 reasons. One, if the citizens are bad people, wajanja wajanja, God will bring mjanja raised to power 6. Mjanja atakuibia hata pant. And if we are good people, God will bring good people who are kind and considerate. People who will not sleep until everybody is asleep. People who will not... Last night I presented my signatures, Mr. Chairman, and all around your office were women who were naked. Naked. I was with my daughter and I was ashamed. She was asking me, what is this? You may be caring of inside your office, but I wish you check around what is happening around your office. So I want to actually advise everybody who desires change. If you thought of, I want to be a guide and I change this country, you are a good person. You have the best for us. But the change that they want should not be pushed, should not be pressed. You see, that never, Mr. Chairman, never undermine a potential leader. Never. Don't judge. Last time, we went through all the tedious programs that you people have listed. 2,000 signatures. You must be from your party. If somebody from Jubilee admires my idea and he is registered with the Jubilee, he can support me, my presidential bid. If somebody from ODM, who before going for ODM did not see me and has realized that I'm there and my ideas can be solved, and buys my idea, is it wrong? Is it a sin? Is it a crime? We keep quiet, and I want to tell everybody here, don't worry, because it is God in charge. If everybody hates you, if everybody hates you, their hate will not decrease anything for you. And if everybody loves you, their love will not increase anything for you, because they are not in charge. It is the Almighty God who does not sleep and does not slumber. Don't worry. Don't worry. Present what you have and focus more on God than the sick people we have in this country. Mr. Chairman, it is your institution that is vetting who will go for which post. If you give the certificate to a candidate, those organizing the debate should not come up with, it is a two-horse race. It is you. Last time you were assisted by the court. And it is the organization, it is the IEBC that will say this person, this lady is fit to sell her ideas to the country. And then somebody says, no, we have two people. You cannot stand up and say, no, it is not you. I've decided. We have used the taxpayers' money to vet who will go for this. And we have decided there are 50 people. Give the avenues to 50 people. Those who want to organize for the debates, whether presidential or MPs, whatever, are talking of will come up with international relations. America took two people, two-horse race, and they are now almost giving a vote of no confidence because they are shocked. So, we are human beings. We are human beings and we don't know many things. We know 0.1. Let's trust on God. And for those who are in administration, and for those who are in leadership, let's take charge. And let's be God, let's consult God. We can make mistakes, let's accept our mistakes. Those supporting and those supporting failures. Let me tell you, if your father has failed you, it is kind of you, and it is a responsibility to tell, Dad, go and rest. Go and rest. So a young man, a young graduate, this country has been frustrated. Kenyans have been frustrated. Last time we were okay. This time hata ugali juu ya meza unga hakuna. And then still you want to push these funny things. Please, let's be sincere. We will leave this world. Mzee Jomo Kenyatta is before God. Odinga is before God. I will go and meet God, and God will ask me how I played it. I have to be very sincere. If there is a wrong, we must agree and say this is wrong. If there is a right, and we must agree and say this is right. And Mr. Chairman, I wish you well, and I pray for you, by the way, to succeed. Yeah? I'm wondering, with the Kalonzo Raila monkey business here because the presidency is still there and they told us one person, I don't know. Already it has started. Mungu akusaidie mzee. Thank you so much.
We thank you very much. We'll have the chairman. Chairman, do you want to take 2 more questions, or do you want to? Okay, we'll take 2 more questions, and then we'll have the chairman speak. Next.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I just have 3 concerns. One is about the campaign schedule. You've asked us to review the campaign schedule for all the presidential candidates. I think after you get the schedule, I think it's important for us to sit together and harmonize so that we don't have clashes during the campaign period. So I think it will be important for us to be able to harmonize those schedules. Number 2, I think we need to improve more on communication between yourself and the political party. Some of the information is coming to us a bit too late, and we're finding it a bit difficult to meet the deadline when the information comes a bit late, and the processes that we have to go through are a bit tedious. So we actually request that if you have a schedule of meetings that you're able to propose so that we know well in advance when we are supposed to have these consultative meetings. Number 2, how are we going to be able to have consultations more frequently so that we understand the processes better? We are now, we have the electronic system coming up. We need to understand how
In news we're following for you this morning, gubernatorial candidates who are yet to name their running mates are in a rush against time. A number of candidates have named their running mates. Meru Senator Kiraitu Murungi, who's running for governor in Meru, and Mombasa Senator Hassan Omar, who is running for governor in Mombasa, named their running mates. Today, presidential candidate Cyrus Jirongo is expected to run to name his running mate. We do know that Polycarp Igathe was unveiled as Mike Sonko's running mate here in Nairobi County. We want to talk about the running mate issue. With me in studio is Gakure Munya, Deputy Governor Murang'a. Also with us is Karie Gathungo, who is the running mate Miguna, and with us is Onchari Oyeye, who is a political analyst in studio. Gentlemen, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I want to start this conversation with you, Onchari. The rush to introduce to the voters the running mate and to tell voters why they have chosen them. Let's talk about whether the choice of running mate will affect the eventual choice of candidate by the voter.
Well, thank you so much, Lillian. Obviously, the selection of a running mate has a very big implication in terms of the appeal of the candidate to the voters. Now, there are so many factors which are considered by a gubernatorial candidate in the selection of a running mate. Number 1 is gender balance. Number 2, of course, talk about age bracket. Number 3, talk about ethnic considerations in places where we have a collection of so many tribes. Take, for instance, Nairobi, where we have what you call the cosmopolitan aspect. All the 43 tribes of Kenya in Nairobi, and if you have gubernatorial candidate, you're going to consider picking someone who can, at least present the ticket as all inclusive. And of course, when we talk about gender, maybe some candidates consider the votes from women, and sometimes, as the case for Miguna, you consider the youth. So, and when it comes to the intention to win, if you want to win as a gubernatorial candidate, you have to take all those factors into consideration as you pick your running mate. Right.
And Gakure, you are a deputy governor. You came from the corporate world. We've known of instances where deputy governors have disagreed with their governors. And, looking at the scenario here, currently in Nairobi County, we have Mike Sonko picking Polycarp Igathe, who is a corporate. We have Hassan Omar, who has recently picked a hotelier, who is also a female. Your experience coming from the corporate world, coming from a corporate background, and now dealing with a politician or operating in a political realm, your disagreement with your governor, what informed that? And share with us your experience on the same.
Thank you, Lillian, and good morning. I did, yes, come from the corporate world, so did my governor. And we clearly thought that we'll be one of the shining counties in the country. Other than coming from the corporate world, I'd also vied for a parliamentary seat, so I had the political belt in me. And my experience in running the county was really different than what I expected, in the sense that we went and found the same people who served in the local government as people who were to deliver results for us. And there was a serious skill gap between who we found and the expected results. It was very challenging. You find that if you'd remember, in the local government authorities, mostly councillors used to reward their voters with jobs in the county government. And then, so you would find people of round skills filling in square gaps. And the big challenge comes, if you don't get people to deliver the expected results, what does the electorate ask you? In the case of disagreeing with the governor, it's a matter of principle and looking at where one is coming from. In running of a county, what is very, very paramount is consultation. And very paramount in the sense that if there is no consultation, then you'll always have a challenge of wanting to go into this direction while another one is reading in a different direction. I would urge people who are looking at ways of succeeding as deputy governors that they must start with proper consultations. When the county executive committee is set up, they must have their involvement in it so that they will have people they've agreed with the governors that will
and still on your position as deputy governor, you know, there's been talk that the role and the position of the deputy governor is not clearly defined. Do you agree with that?
When in reference to the County Government Act, the role of deputy governor is deputizing the governor and doing any assignment that the governor might assign as a county executive committee member. The constitution also bars the deputy governor from one only role, that they cannot fire or hire at the time they are deputizing or when the governor is away. The problem with what is expected of the deputy governor is that it's not clearly defined, because when you say just deputizing, if the governor then doesn't assign you roles and responsibilities, you're left that you have nothing to do. Unlike in the presidency, where the constitution clearly stipulates what is expected of the deputy president. I remember very clearly that we did appeal to the Senate to ensure that roles and responsibilities of the deputy governor are properly stipulated, but the Senate didn't pass through the two commonly known as Mulcomen bills. This left that even if a deputy governor fails in their duties, they as well cannot be impeached, unlike the case for the governor. Right,
and you know, crossing over to you, Karihe, you are the running mate of Miguna. The pair of you, is this a vote hunting title? Are you looking at service delivery? What informed your decision to work with him? And indeed, you know, you may not be able to speak on his behalf, but the pair of you, how did this come about?
Okay, Lillian, thank you and good morning. The pair, me and Guna, was because we want a future where the young generation is too inclusive in the government. So for us, with Miguna, it's tribeless combination, whereby we want the young generation, because a country that invests in the young generation invests in the future. So for us, is to include youth in the leadership. So ours is not about vote hunting. Of course, you know Miguna, even if he is not here, Miguna is a tribeless man. And me being brought on board is about the youth being included in the government. And you have seen those youth who have been included, probably they achieve something. For instance, if you look at Sakanja, who is a youth, has been able to bring a bill about youth employment and youth procurement. So if you include youths in the government, then you're going to invest in a country which will move forward.
But then again, when you look at the pair of the two of you, Miguna, very vocal, of course, very visible, but you know, and this is arguable, you know, seemingly in the background. And we're talking about, and that was my pitch in this conversation, how the choice of running mate is likely to affect the choice of candidate, because we do know that certain candidates and even certain incumbents, like for instance Governor Evans Kidero, we do see for instance Jonathan Mweke very visibly almost campaigning for his re-election with the studio analysis and indeed as he traverses different parts of the country. Your role as his running mate and what you're bringing to the table.
Okay, my role is that Lilian, if you do understand the statistics of this country, and maybe the statistics of Nairobi, is that 65% of the population is youth. So my role is bringing about the youth on board and voting for us, because Miguna is the only man who have shown that he can work with youth who are very creative, industrious and entrepreneurs. So for us is bringing, and for me is bringing the youth on board to vote for us and vote for a regime which is going to think about them.
On Chari, I want to talk about the female aspect. When we talk about factors, you know, that informed the decision to pick running mates in respective places, Hassan Omar, Mombasa Senator, has picked Linda Mariwa Shuma as his preferred deputy in the Mombasa gubernatorial race. We do know that there was criticism from certain quarters here in Nairobi County about Mike Sonko's preferred choice for running mate. The female factor, when we look at a very male-dominated race, and the fact that a lot of these candidates are not giving women a chance to deputize them.
Well, I think what Hassan Omar did was very prudent, because that is now a consideration which, of course, is meant to include or to attract the female vote, which is, of course, very, very high. And the criticism, of course, which was directed at Sonko was unfounded. The pre-nomination period saw Margaret Wanjiru and Sonko sign a pact whereby Margaret was supposed to drop out and support Sonko before the nominations, whereby, of course, upon winning, Sonko was to make her his running mate. Now, she went ahead and appeared on the ballot paper, which means the pact which she'd signed with Sonko, you know, was obsolete. So the criticism was totally unnecessary. And now, because of what we're talking about, talk about the constitutional requirements to include positions for ladies and or for females, we should see more governors appointing, you know, or selecting women as their running mates. That is, of course, you can send a message of inclusivity and gender balance. But again, it's all about, some places it's not even about the female consideration, it's about the tribal balance. Like in Nairobi, we have close to 1 million Gema voters. Of course, Sonko is the only politician, according to my knowledge, of course I do the numbers, way back from 2013. He's the only politician you can call tribalist. He gets support from across the board. But at the end of the day, he had to reward, of course, the majority of his voters who happen to be Gema. That is why I think the appointment or selection of Polycarp Igathe was quite strategic in, you know, deputizing Mike Sonko.
Correct. We want to talk about, once again, the ego clashes between governors and their deputies. Are we likely to see change under the new regime? We know that there's still no way forward, as you clearly put it, as regards you know, outlining the duties and role of the deputy governor. So are we likely to see more strained relationships in the new regime? Is there likely to be a more cohesive way of working between the duo?
I don't see it coming, Lilian, in the sense that the constitution dispensation of the same is not changed. And unless and until that a governor makes a clear decision that they would holistically work with their deputies, this would come. And I think this time round, I think the governors will be a little clear when they're choosing their deputies, so that in that way that they get to a point that they will endeavor to agree in this. I like the way it's being done, unlike last time, because then devolution was a little vague of what was expected to be done. Maybe the governors didn't know what exactly they will handle their deputies. And you have seen even the governors who have made it. quite a number of them are dropping their deputies because they would want to set in different deputies. I appreciate the governors who are picking lady running mates, because in the current dispensation we only had 8 female deputy governors. 3 of them coming from the coast, which was Kwale, Mombasa and Taita Taveta. We had 3 coming from Eastern, which was Makueni, Kitui and Embu. We had none in Central, and we had 1 in Rift Valley, which is Kericho, and we had 1 in Nyanza, which is Kisumu. And I think anybody who's looking at the woman vote should consider that the 50% of the Kenyan women voter is a constituent that would vote their own in the aspect that they feel they'll be represented in the county government. I wish anybody coming in as a deputy governor well, and they must have a very clear understanding of where they would expect the results to come through.
I want to come to you, Karehe, on whether voters are being shortchanged on the way you know, candidates are picking running mates. A lot of these candidates are well known, like I had put it earlier, but then the running mates, some of them are newcomers. The electorate barely has time to interrogate who these people are, to get a feel of what their vision is, and indeed to decipher what it is exactly that they're bringing to the table. So do you feel as if it's a little too late before the polls to be introducing running mates to the electorate?
Okay, Lillian, what I can say is that for us, we are not new, because maybe those who are choosing maybe some people from corporate business and involving them in politics, it will be tricky for them. For me, I was a student leader back in campus. I've also done politics, international politics. For me, interaction with the people, interaction with the voters, that is not new to me. Maybe at the national breed, that's why maybe you can say I'm new. But at the same time, about vote hunt, if someone is decided that he is going to vote for integrity, for competence, then it's not a matter of a running mate, because if you are going to vote, you are going to vote maybe for Miguna, not because of Karehe. At the same time, you are voting for Miguna because of the integrity, the competence he has. If we look for maybe any other aspirant, we just look at the character. If that someone is competent, then you're going to vote for him, not because he picked who is who as a running mate.
But Onchari, you know, you had previously disagreed with this and saying that indeed the running mate plays a very critical role in as far as who casts their ballot for which candidate. That was of your opinion. When we talk about whether this is you know, about vote hunting or service delivery, 76 days to the August polls, being introduced to running mates, some of whom we have never heard of before. At this particular time, is this about vote hunting, or perhaps other candidates more interested in the service delivery that their running mates will be able to bring to the table?
I don't think it's about service delivery. At the end of the day, when you decide to get into a competition or a race for governor, it means you've assessed yourself and you've come to the conclusion that you can actually deliver. So by the time you're picking a running mate, it's not so much about being able to deliver services.
But I mean, shouldn't the electorate be more informed about who these people actually are? They
should. That is the disservice these guys are doing to the voters, because they need to introduce the running mates quite early. Now, back to the issue of service delivery. When you come in as a governor, it means you can be able to make decisions on your own and administer account on your own. So when you bring in a deputy governor, it's about attracting some voters so you think could be skeptical of your maybe personality and that kind of thing. That is where someone like Omba now wants maybe to get in the women voters, the voters who have, you know, ladies. And then of course we've talked about the ethnic balance. Let's say a place like Nairobi, like Miguna and my friend Gadungu. Obviously it's not about Miguna as an individual maybe can be able to deliver as a governor, but he brought in Gadungu to attract a particular constituency of voters. Now, when you come to someone like Sonko, Sonko can deliver as a governor because, you know, he's worked as a senator, was elected as member of parliament. So he brought in Polycarp to appeal to a wider constituency and, of course, enhance its chances of emerging victorious in the August election. So it's so much about
winning the election. I don't think it's so much about service delivery.
But Gakure, looking at Nairobi County in particular, when you look at Senator Mike Sonko, who is now aspiring to be Nairobi governor, when he brought in Polycarp Igathe, he clearly spelled out that indeed this was about service delivery, about his managerial skills, and you know, Polycarp Igathe's background or resume in the corporate world. Introducing him at this particular point, of course, we do know that Mike Sonko, for instance, has a massive following here in Nairobi County, which is very cosmopolitan. Could this shift his fortunes, having brought in Polycarp into the race about 70 or 80 or so days to the election, because of course Polycarp was unveiled last week?
Lillian, I'll start with a disclaimer because Polycarp Igathe is a personal friend. Mike Sonko had said that people perceive him to have no competencies to run at the county government of Nairobi. And he clearly said what he's going to do is that he's going to incorporate technocrats who will help him to deliver the expectations of Nairobi. And Mike Sonko will deliver the votes. But he's promising us that he will have technocracy behind him who will deliver the expectations of the Nairobians. It is very clear indicator that service delivery comes after you have won the elections, because if you don't win, what is service delivery in this case? So Mike Sonko has seen he has the capability to bring in votes, and all he's promising Nairobi is that he would want to run Nairobi with a team of technocracy behind him. And to me, that's the best he did, and we look forward to them being part of Jubilee to bring great success to the city of Nairobi.
Now, how about them gelling and reading from the same script? We know that Polycarp was hosted to an interview on Sunday Live. I don't know if you watched that interview, Gakure, but these gentlemen gelling together, now having to work together, will they be able to convince the electorate that indeed theirs will be a seamless and friendly working relationship?
I did watch Polycarp Igathe. Two admirable things came out of that show. Is one, he kept saying, Senator Sonko, my boss. And then he kept saying he's a twende kazi guy. So he picks it, he's a guy who will be rolling the sleeves and delivering results. And also he sees that he appreciates that they have sat and talked. And maybe this is what they'll bring on the table. Because if you do get your running mate before you've clearly said what is the agenda for the two of you, then you would have to have challenges of ego crash. And what I picked from that is that they've had a chat, they've consulted, and they've agreed to do that. Polycarp has left a bigger job to come and take up the deputy governor's job. So he's so clear in his mind what he's looking at. He also said it is his first time in politics, so he's not coming in as a politician, he's coming in as a twende kazi guy.
And Karihe, another comparison here in Nairobi County, when you look at the pair of Jonathan Mweke and Evans Kidero here in Nairobi County, and now looking at the pair of Polycarp Igathe and Mike Sonko, let's draw those comparisons and look at, should they be successful come the August polls and unseat the incumbent, whether we're likely, because we do know that the relationship between Mweke and Evans Kidero has not had any controversy associated to it. We've not heard of any disagreements between the two. If anything, we've seen Jonathan Mweke really run around campaigning for his boss.
So one thing is that I did watch Igathe when he was here on Sunday, and maybe those guys, the two of them, Igathe and Sonko, you cannot do a service delivery when you don't have a manifesto to run this county. So for us, with Miguna, we do have a manifesto. We know what we are going, because he kept saying that they are going to unveil their manifesto. Time is going on, so these guys, what they're interested is, they get the seat, then they learn it like the way you see Sonko does his things. Another thing is that about Kidero and about Mweke, of course we have seen how those guys have done to this great county. They have not been able to do service delivery as it is required. They have turned this city, I don't know, like a slum. So it's upon us with Miguna to turn this county into a great county, whereby we are going to solidify all the resources that we have to make this county a great county. In this way, like if you go outside, even here in Citizen, you will get some garbage all over. So for us, we are going to have a solid management system waste, whereby we are going to collect those garbage and go and recycle them and can be used. Also, we can see the drainage. So for us, we are going to have what we call the storm drainage system. We are going to have those holes where the storm water can get in and go to reservoirs, and we can recycle them and blood them. For us, we have a manifesto. We know what we are going to do to the people of Nairobi. And
Oyayo, putting the same question to you, looking at the pair of Polycarp Igathe and Mike Sonko. First of all, this is a technocrat who is coming in to take, a deputy position. He's likely to outshine his boss. I stand to be corrected. But looking at the pair of the two, what you predict as regards their working relationship, and looking at the pair of the incumbent, that's Governor Evans Kidero and Jonathan Mweke, who has deputized him extremely well by probably, campaigning for his re-election across the country. Let's weigh these two options and look at the likely scenarios that are likely to play out should the pair of Igathe and Sonko unseat Kidero.
Okay, thank you so much, Lilian, for that. I'd like to start by pointing out the behavior of Miguna. Looks like my friend Gazunga has been learning. Miguna wants to abuse his way into office, and it doesn't work like that. The number two, the reason as to why Mweke and Kidero...
He would like to abuse his way into office?
Yeah, Kidero, Miguna likes, throwing abuses all over, and it looks like Gazunga is picking that up, and it's going to be disastrous for them. It's not even a ticket. Sorry to say that. Now, back to the question.
I'd like you to respond to that. What have you said? What has he said that has rubbed you off the wrong way?
He's made a reference about Sonko doing things in a particular way, which of course does not add up. Sonko has been a senator and he's delivered his services as a senator. He's been, keeping Kidero in his toes. We've watched that. He's taken Kidero to court over so many issues, land grabbing and all that. So it's not like he's not delivered. He's done what he's supposed to do as a senator. That is, from me, as a Nairobian. Okay, and I'm not taking sides. Now, back to the question. The reason as why Kidero and Mweke have been able to work without any kind of controversy is because of Mweke's behavior. He is a reserved guy. He's a kind of a no drama kind of person. Now, Polycarp is a very, very smart guy. Sonko is a very suave politician, and from what you've been able to see so far, they're doing very well. Before Sonko unveiled Polycarp as his running mate, they consulted. He had to make sure that this is the kind of guy I'm going to work with. And most likely, and I'm very sure about this, I think, because before you can pick someone as your running mate, you have to assess what you're bringing to the table as a person and what he's going to bring to the table as a person. They've agreed, you're going to do this and I'm going to do this, and they'll get the job done. I actually expect Polycarp and Sonko to fare much better than Kidero and Mweke. Because you realize Sonko is a very compassionate guy. As a senator, he's been using his own money to do so much in town, and with a lot of money, the biggest budget I think in the country in terms of counties, Kidero has not been able to do anything. And I'm not trying to hype or campaign for anybody. The thing is, as a Nairobian, I can see services have been delivered, given the amount of money they collect as the county revenue. So I'm looking forward to seeing a very, very serious working relationship between Polycarp and Sonko, which I think will be good for Nairobians.
Lilian, may I say this, and this is free advice to Karihe, being a son of Muranga. You must be a little careful, Karihe, if you don't get your gut full and your strong standing way to Miguna, because then what will happen that you might end up being like some of the deputy governors who are flower girls, so we are called. You must have your own stance to what you're looking forward to, and you must be yourself as the deputy governor. Campaigns will start next Sunday. You'll have to run around the city looking for votes. You must now stand not only to the manifesto, but what you are to your charisma. I appreciate that Mweke and Kindero's issue didn't play in the public domain like it did for us in Muranga, Machakos, Mombasa, and the rest. But they had their big chunk of challenges. What I'll say is that I am sure Miguna must have looked at the Muranga political factor in Nairobi, because you see Sonko picked a son of Muranga, Miguna has picked a son of Muranga, Kennedy is a son of Muranga. So there is a Muranga factor into this Nairobi politics, and I'm sure that is what everybody would want to underwrite as they hunt for their votes.
Kariha, you know, sound advice there coming to you from Gakure. Do you agree with his sentiments? And indeed, you know, just the challenge that lies therein of you totally being overshadowed by this very aggressive and vibrant character and, you know, coming across as a flower girl.
Okay, I don't think that maybe will never happen because we and my governor, Miguna, we have the way of doing things. We have agreed that when we get the office, this is what we are going to do because Miguna is a lawyer. I also understand the Constitution of Kenya, the function of the Deputy Governor in the Article 179. So for me, I don't think that I can be overshadowed because what I stand for, like what the Deputy Governor Moranga said, that the principles, if I'm going to champion the agenda of the youth, if I'm going to take a law of elevating, empowering youth, then I'll have to start with that, no matter what. So I don't think in any way I can be a flower girl, Deputy Governor.
All right. And Gakure, now that you're saying that indeed even the Deputy Governor role came across as, you know, portraying people as flower girls, should it be done away with altogether? Because you're clearly pointing out that this is a position that doesn't have clearly defined roles.
You must appreciate that it is not there by accident, Lillian.
But do you have a scorecard when you look at what deputy governors across, you know, the 47 counties have been done or what their legacy is? Is it easy to give them a scorecard?
Look at a case of eventuality which is not anticipated, and this is the case of Nyeri, where Governor Derito Gachagua passed on, and may Almighty God rest his soul in everlasting peace. His deputy stepped in to fill in that gap, and he did it so well, and then Nyeri is continuing. Right. What would have happened if, for example, there is an accident and an eventuality in the first days of being in office? The role of the deputy governor is very clear that it should be there, and deputizing. The only thing that is not here is how the relationships will be. And you see, you cannot constitutionalize relationships. So it is the onus of the governor and the deputy to come up with a proper working relationship which cannot be constitutionalized. Issues of ego clash would come if a deputy is a strong, has a strong political following, which also would keep the governor on his toes. Other than just the administrative roles, it is what is behind that, and it comes from the word go. When you are vote hunting, if the governor feels like you have a bigger political following, there is cause to worry. Yeah.
I thank you for your time this morning, gentlemen. We're taking a break. We'll be back with more on Citizen Extra. Stay tuned.